Welcome back to Tact Talks. I'm your host, Jack Brandwood, and this is the podcast where I speak to some of the brightest and most influential people in the tech industry in the UK. This week, I sit down with the Director of Technology at Lad Bible, Mark Kitching. Our conversation ranges from Mark's journey to becoming a technology director, the struggles he faced when he was trying to build the team out, and the importance of cultural diversity.
I think you need it. I think you get a much more diverse set of ideas. People come at problems from different angles, especially with the female-male split. I've always found that those teams work better, higher performing, much more efficient teams.
For more information on this episode and Tact Talks, head over to tact-it.co.uk. Thanks so much for listening and enjoy the episode. Hi, Mark. Thanks for coming on. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you very much. Yes.
Good. You found your way from Leeds today.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah, it's about the weather.
Yes, of course. No, of course. Well, look, I always like to start these things off, Mark, with who is Mark Kitching?
So I'm getting old now, so it can take me a while to go through where I started and where I've landed up. I started as a developer, really. I started doing, at a consultancy when I left university, doing all sorts, doing hardware, software, running cables around offices, doing mail shot leaflets, in the days before the internet. And started doing website development for people that didn't know they wanted websites. We had to go out and actually sell websites to people, wow. Which thinking back is amazing now that people used to ask us, what's the point in having a website? But when I started doing website development, I realised that that's what I wanted to focus on. So after about 5 years, I left that company, moved down to London, which was interesting. Worked for a sports website company down there for a while. My wife got pregnant while we were down there, so we moved back up to Leeds. So we had someone to look after the baby, some babysitters, and ended up working for a company that was bought by Sky. So that's how I ended up working at Sky, basically. I was there for total service for 17 years, which is a very long time for some people. But I did sort of several jobs while I was there. So I moved from being a developer to Scrum Master. I think I was very good at sort of translating technical talk to management and back again, and understanding management and understanding how to talk to developers and bringing them around to what management wanted, and because developers can be a bit set in their ways sometimes. So Scrum Master came really naturally to me. Eventually I stopped doing development and Scrum Master full time. Eventually, we were about 30 people in that Sky Sports team in Leeds. My boss then got the remit to bring a whole lot of teams up from London. And that's when Sky moved into Leeds Dock, basically. I think over the space of about 18 months, I think we probably had about 200 people. And then it ended up being about 500 people down Leeds Dock in Leeds. I helped one of the heads of technology create the first team, which was the customer service team. That was Paul Lemon at the time. And then after I'd sort of worked with him for about a year in that team, I wanted to do it myself. So my boss gave me the opportunity to become a head of technology myself, bring another couple of teams up from London. Not many of the people actually came up from London. They got dispersed into those areas of Sky, but we had to hire a lot of people in Leeds at the time. So I ended up hiring about 30 to 40 people for that team. So after about 17 years of doing various jobs there, and this is why I stayed for so long, I had a lot of opportunity to do lots of different things. The people that I was working with, I really loved the people I was working with there as well. But after about 17 years, I thought, really is about time I did something else. And that's when Solly at Lad Bible gave me a shout and said, do you fancy coming in and have a chat? Never said there's a job going, but you sort of assume there is when someone, a founder of a company, does that. Went and met him at Tariff and Dale and had a beer, got on really well. Had a second interview the next evening with the other board members and got offered the job that night. And that's 5 years ago now, almost 5 years today, actually. So I went and joined Lad Bible as head of tech. That's sort of become director of technology since as the company's expanded and we've got more people there. My boss said it's not a promotion, it's a job title change, but I'm not technology director at Lad Bible. Yeah, that's where we are now. So briefly, what I've done at Lad Bible is we lost a few people when I started. I think the culture there wasn't brilliant as far as the development team goes. There was a big disconnect between what the product teams wanted and what the development teams were doing. There was no real interaction between the two. I think that left the development team a little bit disenfranchised, and it left the management not knowing what to do with this tech team, which is one of the reasons I was brought in. Lost a few people from that tech team, but built that up again. Got a really good engineering manager, Dave Mason, shout out to Dave, and a really good UX specialist called Nick Hansel. And between the three of us, and Actually, I've got to mention Josh Nesbitt as well because he helped me. But we built up that team. I built up an IT team from pretty much from scratch as well because we had a few leavers in that team. And the nice thing is that we've built it in a really good way where we've got buy-in from the company, buy-in from the dev team. We talk to the company now. We've got developers that can talk to business people and vice versa. We work really well with the company, and the turnover of staff's been really good, especially compared to the rest of the team, which is probably a feature which we might talk about of my leadership. I think is that I'm good at keeping a happy team together that we don't have much turnover of staff from. Long rambling.
No, perfect. That's great. Right, we can end the podcast there. So how long have you been at Lad Bible for?
Well, it's just under 5 years. It's 5 years to the day that I accepted the job-ish. I think it was sort of the second week in November.
That's incredible. Well, look, as every great story has an end, it also has a beginning, right? So a new segment on the Tact Talks podcast. A big thing for us and our vision is creating a world where everyone finds a dream job, right? So when you were growing up, could you draw us what you wanted to be? What was your dream job? And if you can talk us through it as you're doing it.
Yeah, this could be really interesting. I did get a B in art at school, but I've not done any since then.
A B?
A B.
You show off.
Well, GCSEs, people don't know what a B is nowadays.
Very true.
Basically, I'm going to try and draw a man here. We went to an open day at Leeds University when I was a kid. My granddad worked there in the engineering department, and he got us in the back door because we had to pay for it, but we got it for free with my mum and dad. And we went into the dental school. So let's just without giving too much away. So I'm going to do a bald head because that sounds about right for me. And they had some dummies that you could practice on.
Okay.
You could practice taking teeth out. And it sounds quite macabre, but they were just, dummy heads with teeth in the thing. It's what they use at the school there to teach people how to take teeth out in the dental school. And I absolutely loved it. So I'm going to put a little mask on, like the guy here, a little coat. From that moment on, I was wanting to be a dentist. So up until about, let's just do some hands here.
That's a great drawing.
So yeah, there's my dentist.
Incredible.
But so up until about when it came to choosing options at school.
Go show it to the camera for people listening. Mark has drawn a dentist, and it's a great drawing.
A generic scientist, dentist, doctor type person.
Go and check out the video if you want to see it.
When it came to choosing options at school about what we wanted to do for the final 2 years and what we wanted to get GCSEs in, it was pointed out to me to be a dentist that I had to get all three sciences, so biology, chemistry and physics. And I just didn't want to do that because there was other things I wanted to do, art being one of them, funnily enough. And I can't remember, computer science I wanted to do as well. And the reason I wanted to do computer science was because we bought, and this is showing my age now, we bought a Spectrum at home. And I just loved coding on the Spectrum. It was ZX Basic that we did. And it just basically used to make the screen flash and things like that. But I loved that. So I thought, I don't want to do all three sciences because I want to do art and computer science. So I ended up taking a combined sciences. And that's where my dentistry ideal went out the window, really, because I knew that I wouldn't be able to get the right qualifications to go to medical school.
Fair enough.
But luckily, I loved computer science so much that leaving school, I ended up doing that as a career and went through university and college doing computer sciences.
Sure. And now, obviously, you're at Lad Bible. You've been here for 5 years, like you said. Now, everyone knows who Lad Bible are, but I guess for anyone who doesn't, who is Lad Bible and what do they do?
Yeah, and it sounds obvious, I suppose, to me, or people that know Lad Bible, but I didn't know a heck of a lot about them when I took that meeting with Solly. And some of the interest and some of the reasons why I wanted to come all the way over to Manchester meeting was because I wanted to know what do Lad Bible do. I knew that there were funny videos on Facebook and various other social media, but I was like, how? And this is one of the questions I asked him in the meeting is, how do you make money? I can see what you're doing, but how does that, and you monetize that? So basically, we do that side of things. We put funny videos on Facebook and websites and stuff. But the revenue is probably split about half and half. And I might be getting some of this wrong, so any business people that are watching from my place might correct me when I get back. But it's about half and half between revenues that we make from advertising on web and social media, and half doing client work. So setting up campaigns for big clients like Coke and Smirnoff. They'll come to us and say, we want to reach a certain demographic. We're very good at talking to, I suppose our audience is actually stretching as we get older, but it used to be very much sort of 17 to 25-year-olds. It's probably more along the lines of, say, 18 to 35-year-olds. But my mum loves Lad Bible, my dad follows Lad Bible, and they're a lot older than me. So clients will come to us and ask us to run their campaigns, run their social media sometimes, create advertisements for them in the form of sort of almost sort of funny social media posts. We'll get sponsorships, for example. We'll get sponsorships for, I can't remember who the client is now, but we've just done a video with, I think it's Conor Cody and Raheem Sterling talking about the England lineups and that sort of thing. And a company will come and say, can you do us something sports related, World Cup related, that will resonate with a certain audience, and we get money from that as well. So that's a very simple idea of how we work. Yeah, that is very simple as well.
No, I'm sure, and it's just interesting because they said Lad Bible's been going for years. I know they've been in the news quite a lot, and all this great stuff's been happening. And you see them always on social media, and sometimes you don't even know it's Lad Bible, but it is.
Sometimes we'll do, like I say, we'll do branded stuff that is very much Lad Bible, and we've got originals that we put on YouTube and various social media that are, this is Lad Bible doing this. But there are things that we do for clients that you might not realise are Lad Bible as well. Yeah.
When I was a lot younger, when Lad Bible first came out, all it really was like silly videos and funny videos and hilarious. But I think as Lad Bible have grown over the past 10, 15 years, they've become really hard hitting. Pieces.
I think that comes from the founders. I think they know that when they create the site, we just had a 10-year anniversary, so 10 years ago, I think they were young then. They were at university, and I think a lot of that content was what they found funny, what lads, especially I think of their age, found funny. But obviously they've got older and they've realised that a lot of the stuff that we do wasn't necessarily going to translate to into the current environment, modern times. But like I say, it's been driven by those guys and by the people around them that have joined the company. And we've moved away from that laddie culture, and we've got multiple social good campaigns. So things like You OK Mate, which is a male mental health campaign that we did probably about 6 years ago now, which is still, we still do little bits and bats with that now. We've done campaigns for the trash aisles, which is to highlight the fact there's so much plastic in the oceans. Now, we did that just probably about 6 months to a year before everybody else sort of picked that up in the mainstream media. Sky started doing that while I was working there, but it came a little bit after Lad Bible started doing that. So we've been a little bit ahead of time when it comes to social media, social good campaigns, which has helped that brand. We do sort of lean towards a sort of, we try to keep away from political battles, but I think you can tell by our editorial content, we listen to our audience. We know what our audience want, and we'll lean into that sort of thing.
I think it's interesting. That's a really good point. As the founders of the business have grown and not matured, but like grown up, so has the business, and it's such a good way to put it.
And I think it'd be easy to assume that they'd had advice from other people to change direction, but knowing the founders really well, it's not. It's they've seen how we should be running that company. And some of the social good, a lot of the social good campaigns that we've done come from the staff. So we had, the first couple of years that I worked here, we'd do brainstorming sessions in the 2 6-monthly company dues, where everybody would get together and think of a brainstorm an idea for a social good campaign. I think it was I can't remember what it's called, Extinction campaign came out of that, which was raising awareness of, I think it might have been rhinos in Africa, and their plight and that sort of thing. And that came out of one of these brainstorming sessions, and we voted for that, and that got, that was the one that we chose to highlight. We like to try and do at least one social good campaign a year.
Where does tech come into it?
So I shouldn't say this, but my boss, he will tell me we're a tech company. I think we're a media company, but he will point out that all our platforms are tech platforms. Half of the money that we make is from the website and advertising on the website or Facebook. The tech team, we look after the websites. which was about 4 when I started. Well, it's 3 when I started. It was Lad Bible, Sport Bible, and Tyler is what used to be Pretty 52 is now Tyler. We've since created Gaming Bible. We took over Unilad, so we look after Unilad website now, and the company group website. So there's 6 websites now. So that's what the tech team look after mainly. We work very closely with the programmatic team to understand how advertising works on the website, how best to display adverts without causing people to just bounce and go somewhere else.
Sure.
Obviously there's some really good examples of other media websites that have tons and tons of adverts, and you can't even see the content. So we're constantly working to try and make sure that there's a good balance between user experience and monetization. We've got an app. It's not very well publicized. It's been there for about 2.5 years. It's basically all our best video content and all our editorial content. To look after the app as well. We're still working out what to do that. We want some sort of USP, but we've never been sure what a Lad Bible app should be. So we're still thinking about that. And we'll look after integrations with Facebook, Google News, so we distribute our content so we can get people back onto the website. I also look after the IT team, which is very different. So my team looks after Wi-Fi, laptops, making sure everything's working in the office and that sort of thing. Yeah, very under...
Very job.
Yeah, but we don't get much praise when things are going well, and we get the flack when things aren't going well. So that's it's
not a very thankful job.
Yeah, that's the...
No, I know what you mean. It's the classic.
I used to look after the data engineering team as well. We had a small data engineering team. We created a data warehouse so that we could pull all the data in from Facebook, Google Analytics, Instagram, Snapchat. They all have APIs that we can pull our data from. And the reason we do that is because we want to understand how people are using our website, who's using our website. It's a little harder nowadays because Facebook anonymized all their data about 3 years ago. So we can't look at users now. It's just we look at demographics, and we have other tools to help us understand our audience in an anonymous way. We've got a data science team that will analyze that data, feed back to clients about how their campaigns are running, what we can help them with using that data. That data science team, I looked after that about 3 years. That moved into the data. We created what's called a DIP team, which is Data Insights and Planning, and they went to work for that team. So I haven't looked after that team for about 2 years now, but I used to look after that team as well. Yeah, I think that's it.
Wow, that's such a varied job. Was it a bit of a sigh of relief when you were able to hand the data engineering team over? It was like, oh, thank God, I can focus on these 2 things now.
Because the woman that came in, Anna Lee, she was brilliant. She is brilliant. Sorry, and I knew that she would be able to look after that team better and have a better idea of what they were doing on a day-to-day basis. But I do miss that team.
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm sure.
But it was I enjoyed working with the data engineering team. Actually, it was something different. It's like the IT team that I look after. I've never looked after the IT team until I went into Lad Bible. And it's so varied and so different that it keeps life interesting.
Yeah, and you mentioned when you were at Sky how you had all these opportunities to go and try new different things. Same at Lad Bible. I mean, you're the variable here. It sounds like because you go out and search for to do these different things, that's probably what's going on.
Yeah, I need to keep busy. I have this weird personality where if I get bored, I just get bored and then I'll stop doing things. If I'm busy, I will absolutely focus on everything. I'll do too much, so there's 2 sides to it. So I have to keep busy. I have to make sure I've got things to do, because the alternative for me is to just go, oh, bored, my mind will wander onto other things, that aren't work related. So yeah, I need to be interested in the thing that I'm doing. And if I am, I will focus 100, I was going to say 110%, I hate that word, 100% of my time into that. Yeah.
Wow. And talking of keeping busy, because a big project you went through at Lad Bible was the replatforming that you did.
Yeah.
Which over 4 years, was that right?
Probably about 2 years it took us.
2 years.
But that was, I've come from a Scrum Master Agile background, so we didn't just take 2 years and then do a big bang. We did it incrementally, and again, I have to thank various people that brought in for the replatforming. I used to be a developer, but my skills were very much back end data processing. A lot of the stuff that my team do now is way beyond me, and I don't even have time to keep up. So as long as I've got as long as I understand the timescales, a high level understanding of how the platform works, so that I can talk to people like auditors and my boss about what's going on. That's fine, and costs, of course. But yeah, we bought a really good an engineering manager called Dave Mason. We've got an absolutely amazing developer called David Harrison, and everybody else that worked on that team. We just put a really good team together. They worked really well together, and the platform the reason we re-platformed was because we have so many users on our websites. It has to be resilient. If anything goes wrong, we've got 40 million users on there, it will just fall over. The old platform was quite good at that because there was nothing dynamic on the front end, but it meant that it was really slow to get stuff published. And one of the pains that the business had when I started was, if we need to make a change to the front end, it takes ages. It takes 30 minutes. If we need to build a category page on there, it takes 2 hours. So we rebuilt based on the fact that we've got a lot of users. It needed to be dynamic and handle users as well. And yeah, it took about 2 years in total, but as I say, incrementally, we were building little bits and bats. We didn't just do a big bang. There it is. And we did obviously we had 3 websites at the time, 4 after this. So we did it sort of bit by bit.
Which is a massive, incredibly big project. And I think one thing I always like to ask people when they've done such a big thing like that is, where do you start? Because isn't that the biggest issue with anything in life, is like just getting started?
Yeah, and for us it was what's breaking really, and that sounds really obvious, but the old CMS system that we had used to constantly break down. There used to be processes in the middle that used to break down. So we had to start with how do we fix this bit that's breaking and not putting stuff on the front end. So we ended up there's 3 layers. There's like the back end CMS that actually, as it turned out, we did the CMS last,
right.
But we built it so that middle layer was working properly, so we could service the front end. And then we went back and revisited that so that we could so that we could then strip out the back end and keep that middle layer there and put a new CMS in. So that middle layer was working on APIs rather than Jenkins builds and things like that, so that we could basically change the front end, change the back end, and that middle layer still works.
Right.
That sounds sounds like I know what to talk about there, doesn't it?
It does. It's so 2 years of a project. So you start on the almost like the low hanging fruit sort of stuff. Basically, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, things that were breaking. I mean,
right.
when there was a point where it was just me and one contractor. Well, one contractor and a full-time member of staff,
right,
in the development team, which was scary times. Things were going wrong a lot, and
yeah.
I was even having to get my hands dirty and try and figure some stuff out on a weekend to figure out why things weren't appearing on Facebook or weren't appearing on the website, and that had to stop. It was just stressful for everybody. So we needed to figure out how do we stop that stress. That's the first thing, and I think that's probably a really good point there. Is yes, how do you start? Well, we should stop the stress points first, make sure everybody's happy and no one's having to get called out on a weekend, and then go from there basically.
Great bit of advice.
It was getting quite scary, especially when I couldn't get hold of anybody on a weekend and things were going wrong, because we don't actually have any out of hours support.
Yeah.
That was something that this comes back to it not being a tech company. I think when I've worked in other places that are tech companies, they understand that there's a certain amount of hours on call work that needs to be done, whereas that wasn't something that was really understood at LAD, and it took me a while to get people to understand some of the vagaries of how development teams work there. And ironically, we're now in an environment where people can work from home remotely and come into the office a couple of days a week. At that time when I started, that wasn't something that anybody really, there's no appetite for that. Everybody needed to be in the office, which could have made it difficult for me to hire staff. But luckily we actually hired a really good team despite that. Yeah, so it was just me and a contractor and a full-time member of staff trying to do our best with on-call, without getting paid on a weekend.
It's like when you go through war, you must be like best friends now, surely.
Yes, absolutely. Well, those contractor and the full-time staff aren't actually here anymore, but we have been through a few things as a team, but that comes into building a team and getting the best blend of people and making sure that you're getting people that can work well together and that will have each other's back even from word go, really.
And you talked about building your team out there. What struggles did you come across when you were trying to build your team out? Was there anything?
Surprisingly few. Like I just alluded to, we weren't offering any sort of remote working. We weren't offering any sort of flexible hours, even down to the point when I was working at Sky, it was sort of assumed people would be in sort of before 10, but then if you come in early, you could leave after 4 sort of thing. The management were quite keen that didn't happen either. And I think I understand the reasons for that. I think that they'd been burnt in the past with people sort of taking the mick of Leeds anyway, taking the mick out of the management and not having senior managers in there to control that. It's a very young workforce. There was a point when I was the oldest person there, not anymore, but I was at the time. So, I worried about that sort of environment, about not being able to hire developers because they'd look at the Lad Bible brand and say, well, it's not a tech company. Why do I need to work there? I can go and work here and have remote working and work from home for a bit and do flexible hours. But I think this is the only bit where I will get a little bit big-headed, maybe. I think between me and Dave Mason, my engineering manager, I think our personalities shone through, and I think because we knew what we were doing, because we know how to build a good development team, I think that shone through when we were talking to people, when we were trying to persuade people to come and join us. Because we did have a couple of people that early doors, were quite dismissive when we approached them. Developers are anyway when you approach, especially on LinkedIn, they don't reply to anybody, and I very, very, very rarely do either. But we had to persuade people that this was a good place to work. I think between me and Dave, I think we did a really good job of just making them understand that yes, this is Lad Bible. It's not necessarily a tech company. Yes, there are certain rules or limitations about flexible working and that sort of thing, and the benefits weren't great at the time either. They are now, but they weren't great at the time. But I think, me and Dave did a really good job of sort of convincing people that we knew how to run a dev team, that it would be a great environment to work in. And I think that was borne out. Yeah. So difficulties hiring people. I think we thought there was going to be difficulties. Actually, it turned out that we managed to hire a really good team. But we did have to, persuade people. That we did have to talk to them about the lack of benefits and the holidays as well. Again, people were starting on 23 days holiday. They were coming in from places like Sky where they had 30. Sure. And that was really hard to sort of say, because that's a work-life balance thing, right? And me personally, when I found out that I was on, 23, when I started, it's like, oh, I'm on what? And I didn't ask that in the interview. That's been rectified now, as I say, our benefits and holidays and things are pretty standard now. But at the time, it was quite hard. Those were the things that were restricting us. But I think we did a really good job in sort of persuading people that despite all that, this was going to be a great place to work. And I think it really has been. I think the development team, we've not been through, the turnover hasn't been high. It's been very low. But I think everybody that's left, maybe one or two exceptions have said, oh, I wish I hadn't left, or I'm glad I left, but I really miss it, and that sort of thing.
Surely testament to you guys, like you said, not a tech business at the time and a few issues there, but still joined the business. And I know as a recruiter, I saw the team that you had over at Lad Bible and have over at Lad Bible, some amazing people there. So clearly bought into, again, you as a leader and also the vision that you've got for the tech part of the business. So it makes complete sense. And that kind of leads on to my next question as well, because I know something you are passionate about is diversity.
That actually has been a struggle. I think we've done well with gender diversity and sexual diversity in other ways. We've not done so well with sort of cultural diversity, I suppose is the right way of looking at it. And I think that probably is the brand. I look across Manchester and my old teams at Sky, and we had a lot of diversity, different races, different cultures, which we don't really have at Lad Bible. So it could be, and this is probably something that I think if we'd struggled hiring, we might have probably gone to some sort of recruitment consultant and said, we are having problems with diversity. How do we hire into that? Which is a shame, because I've always looked after diverse teams. I think they work really well. We've had a few female developers, which is great. North Coders is a great place for us to go and get junior developers, and we make sure we keep that gender balance good. But we've struggled with actually just getting applications from any other sort of diverse background, and I think you need it. I think you get a much more diverse set of ideas. People come at problems from different angles, especially with the female male split. You do tend to find that there is very much a different way of looking at things between women and men, so I've always found that those teams work better, higher performing, much more efficient teams. Yeah.
It's understandable, isn't it? You know, if you had a room full of just like, you know, white British males, they had all the same experiences growing up and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But if you get people from different backgrounds, like you said, different genders, that sort of thing, they've had different experiences, which changes the way they look at stuff.
And we've had a good mix of, educations as well. You know, I know people talk about diversity with race and gender, but, we've got people that have taught themselves, that have not been to university, they've not gone through the traditional channels. People who have got traditional university, we even had Jen, that was one of our data engineering managers, who had a PhD. So we've got the whole gamut. But I think nowadays the barrier of entry into computer science and data science is not what it was when I was growing up. I think if I didn't have a university degree, I don't think I was ever getting, stepping into a computer science environment. Whereas nowadays, I think it's people will teach themselves just because they're interested, and they'll do it as a hobby. You don't have to be a nerdy guy sat in the corner not talking to anybody anymore. It's much more of it's a normal profession now. I think it's probably fair to say. I hate using the word normal, but it's just another profession like anything else. Whereas I think when I was growing up, it was like all the XZ spectrum programmers like me used to do that. It used to be very much an introverted, geeky type job. It's definitely not that anymore, and that's good. It's good that we get that full gamut of people. And ironically, they tend to work better together. If you do have a team full of nerdy white 20 to 30-year-olds, I tend to find there's more infighting and more, bitching about each other's abilities, whereas we don't really get that, if I'm honest.
That's really good. That's a really good insight, and also a great point around diversity of education, diversity of like their entry to into tech. Because you obviously university, but you're right. Back in the day, probably university was the only way you could have gotten a job in tech, right?
Yeah, I feel it was at the time when I came into it. But I mean, North Coast, I don't want to give them too much credit. But,
free advertising.
No, might as well. Why not? Because they're great. But the people we get from North Coast are great. They've got a really good base of coding skills, but they've got life experience as well. We've got people that used to be salespeople, people that used to be accountants that are now developers. We had a school teacher that came in, which was great because she had that background of knowing how to talk to people and teach people stuff, combined with how to do development, which was great for she make a great Scrum Master, for example, and which is one of the things that she was interested in. So yeah, I think having that diversity of background as well as education is quite important.
Can you tell me about a person that you've crossed paths with that's had a real impact on where you are today?
Yeah, I hate to pick names, and the person I'm going to pick, I've done this before to him, but he and he's quite, he doesn't like the attention. But my old boss, Mark West at Sky, he was the guy that was in charge there. He was director of technology for this Sky Digital area when we started moving all the teams up from London.
Wow.
And I owe him for giving me that chance of becoming a head of technology and doing that myself. But so I was at a point at Sky where I was just a developer and Scrum Master, been doing it for a few years. And I was getting to that point where I'm thinking, I've done this a long time now, and I don't know what else I want to do. And I actually got an offer from one of my ex-colleagues to go and work at Manchester City, which would have been a fantastic job. And I thought, I don't want to just go and do it without seeing what my boss says. So I went and spoke to Mark West. He was actually not my boss at the time, he was my boss's boss. But I said to him, listen, this is what I'm thinking of doing. I knew he'd be really honest with me. Even though I thought he might want to keep me, I knew he'd tell me if he thought it was the right move for me or not. So I said, look, I've had this offer to go work for Man City. And he says, well, we're about to do this. And then basically, he hadn't told many other people at the time, we're about to open an office in Sky Dock, about to bring 500 people up from London. Do you want to be part of it? I'm like, wow, that sounds brilliant, yes. But he just had a lot of faith in me. And I think he understood the skills I had, which I probably didn't, which was more, because I've never been a brilliant developer, I'll be absolutely honest. And, I enjoyed being a Scrum Master, but I think my skills are definitely, I understand development people, I understand personalities, I understand how to talk to them, but I also understand how to talk to management. I understand how to get buy-in from management, get buy-in from development, bring those two together. And I think he realised that probably before I did. And then after I'd done a year as a Scrum Master in one of the new teams, I said to him, look, it's PDP time. what should I be doing in the next year to develop myself? And he said, well, do you want to be a head of tech for another team? And he was just he's always had my back. He's always been a boss that he won't just sort of ask why did that go wrong? Why did you mess that up? Why is that website broken? He'd understand the intricacies of why that had happened. You know, that he wouldn't just point fingers. You know, he was definitely that. I know, you know, in the agile development environment, we have certain laws and things, but, you know, pointing fingers and that sort of thing, you know, but he got that. He really did. He used to take you aside and say, right, this person's complained about this. Do you want to have a chat about what's happened? And then he'd understand that point of view. You'd have a very honest chat about what we might have done better. But then he'd also go back to that person and say, well, I need to stick up for the team here. You know, they've done this because of that. And, you know, and we used to have really good, honest chats. And I think, you know, since working for him, I think one of my overriding philosophies is honesty. Try and be as absolutely as honest as possible with everybody. You can't always be, because sometimes you do have to shield people from the truth. Because a good example, say, is you know, if redundancies is actually a good example. You know, if there are redundancies coming, you don't necessarily want everybody to know straight away, because they might panic, they might leave, and they might not be one of the people that are going to be made redundant. You don't want to unnecessarily worry people. People don't cope with change very well. But up to a point, I think honesty is the absolute best policy. I know it sounds cliched, but and that's one of the things that Matt Grest did. You know, he was very honest with me. He used to tell me when I fucked up. I don't know if I can swear. And he used to tell me when he was backing me, and he used to back me as much as possible to a point. You know, obviously if I had messed up, we'd have a good honest chat about it. But yeah, he just had faith in me, and faith that I don't think I really had until that point, when I got that job offer from Man City and he asked me to stay. Yeah, I think I got a lot more confident from that point, and my career's really sort of taken off since then, because I think probably because he gave me that confidence.
Love that. Thank you. And I'm sure Matt Grest will be happy to hear this come out on the podcast.
Be mortified.
Good. Well, I always like to wrap these things up with one question, and say today was your last day on Earth. And apart from being on this podcast, obviously, and spending time with family, what would you be doing?
Obviously, I'd be with my family, obviously.
Of course, yeah.
But if I had to choose something else, I'd probably be taking part in some sort of sports event.
Right.
I think if I was going to go off this planet, I'd want to be on my bike, maybe. Or
mountain bike or road bike?
Road. Well, I've done both, but road bike. I've did a triathlon for the first time this year, and I've really enjoyed that. I did 3 this year. So yeah, I'm going to be training for another one next year. So. Yeah, I think running or cycling, maybe not swimming, but running or cycling, I think that's where I'd like to be. But obviously it would be with my family.
Yeah, of course.
In Mexico.
Is there an Ironman, do you think?
Yeah, I've just actually booked one I've booked Copenhagen Ironman next year.
Whoa.
So it's in August. And I've not done a full Ironman before. I've done a half Ironman this year. So I've literally coming in on the train this morning. I'm sort of thinking, what the hell have I done here? But yeah, I just got to train for it now.
Well, there you go. Amazing. Well, hopefully, next time we get you on, you'll have completed your Ironman. You'll have the tattoo.
I might do. Yeah, I might. Yeah.
Well, look, great. Thanks for coming on, mate. Really appreciate it. And it's been a really good chat, and yet really excited to see where Mark and Lab Bible are in the next 6 to 12 months.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Cheers.
And that's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for listening, and I really hope you enjoyed it. Anything we talked about will be linked in the show notes. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. And we'll catch you on the next one.